Chapter 10 Crescendo of the Cull. Shortly before the reintroduction of Tallinn.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that, Goden. Safety hasn't served you well, so I'd say Cull 19 is overdue for a change of pace.
Skature placed his hand on Goden's shoulder and leaned in closer.
My plan is going to involve some surprise elements. Could you go fetch a lighting orb I stashed under my bed for me? Then meet me back out here where they line us up in the morning.
Goden nodded and did as Skature directed. When he returned with the requested orb, he found Skature kneeling down beside the morning attention spot with a small pile of dirt next to him. Goden handed him the orb and knelt down too, both of them with their backs to the optical nodes.
I want you to see something, Goden.
Skature held the orb over the floor.
It was little Hella who figured this trick out. These lighting orbs are made of a dense crystal stone. They're remarkably hard, yet not brittle to impact.
He stoked his flame quickly, then smashed the orb into the floor, causing a radiating spiderweb of cracks. Impressive, but how does that help us while in quarantine?
Oh, just this alone would make a formidable weapon if hurled as a projectile, but I got bigger plans for this little bauble,
Skature said with a grin.
Recently, Miss Hella stumbled upon an interesting flaw to the aspirite floors. When fractured, it severs the connecting metal filaments that unite each aspirite gem to the next. It breaks the network at that point and causes any affected areas to malfunction when turned on.
Malfunction? Really?
If you stand on this spot when the floors turn on, their ray and magic won't have any control over you,
Skature explained. Goden sucked in a quick breath. Incredible! Skature continued.
Now, notice this little demonstration was done over top of where they lined me up for the morning attention. I made a note of this exact spot when they announced their quarantine.
Skature then motioned over to the pile of dirt he had collected.
When the floors turn on for attention next, if things go poorly and we need to play our hand, I'll be free to make one move. But it'll be obvious if there's a dull spot among all the shine and aspirite blue. So I need you to help me spread that dirt around this area and the rest of the attention spots so no one will notice.
Goden nodded as they both began to spread the dirt with their hands first and then their feet. Looking down to seem nonchalant, they continued their quiet planning. It's a good idea, Skature, but what if they bring in columns of shock troopers? That's what they do out in the city when they need to secure a rebellious Thutan, Goden said.
Well, you may be surprised what I can do with a single move there, Goden. But fair enough. You should know what's coming because the Rayans certainly won't.
Skature got closer to Goden so he was within earshot.
I'm able to call upon a remarkable amount of flame in a quick burst. I used this last night to leap the Cull walls so I could meet my team members. This will be my one move. Well, technically it'll be two.
He motioned to the sky.
I'll leap towards wherever the sun is in the sky. That'll shock and blind any troopers who try to track me. Once I get close to the peak of my jump, way up there in the air, I'll charge my flame up further and hurl this orb down to the ground. When it impacts, it'll do some serious damage to the floors here in the common. That should distract the Rayans, allowing you all to escape.
Goden nodded imperceptibly. I see the risk you were talking about. If the impact doesn't affect the floors as much as you hoped, we'll remain stuck and you'll return to a floor you may not be able to leave.
Certainly, that's a gamble, I'll admit, but that's not really the risk I was talking about.
Skature rested his arm over Goden's back.
How contrite are you about serving the will of Grom? Because there's a very good chance we may need to make a desperate move if things get too hot in here. It's going to involve you in a big way, and I need to know you're committed to it, or it simply won't work.
Goden narrowed his eyes. Tell me what you need. I'm willing to give everything to Grom. It's the least I owe her, and myself. Skature was picking up speed, falling back towards the chaos that had erupted in the Cull below.
Good. Goden and the kids are getting to the rear of the Cull,
he thought, noticing them heading in that direction from the air.
Now let's stir these Rayans up a little bit and see what they got.
The coy smile on his face showed a sliver of teeth, like a predator about to attack its prey. He landed with the finesse of a well-trained Thutan warrior and immediately shot towards the still open doors of the Cull. Flipping in midair, he turned himself feet first to connect directly with an unsuspecting Tallin's back, separating his upper half from his still immobile lower half in an eruption of gore. Skatter used this impact to send himself back towards the Cull, avoiding the blue floors of the same causeway that was holding Tallinn. The previously stunned shock troopers were scrambling back into formation for a counterattack. Skatter focused on the formation to his left, the one the officer had called Mobile 1. They seemed closer to recovery than the other troop. "Oh no you don't," Skatter said as he scooped up a large chunk of broken floor on his return trajectory. Stopping hard at an off angle to the nearly completed formation of Mobile 1, he fired the chunk straight through the middle of them. The impact obliterated 4 Rayans in its path, while the remaining 20 flew out of their formation as a result of the sudden attack. "Mobile 1! Don't let him break our unity!" one of the lead Rayans barked. "He knows we're stronger together! Form up and focus your will on him as a unit!" Skatter took that as a challenge. "Try your worst! Ha ha! This is the last day you'll curse this world with your breath, Rayan!" He blasted off into the air again, this time diagonally, landing horizontally against the Cull wall, then firing back towards the ground on the other side of the common. "I can keep them busy chasing me around the common while I bust up their squad some more," he thought, rocketing off again at another obtuse angle. Meanwhile, though, the second group of shock troopers now flanked the common in a 2-line pincer formation, creating a 24-man circle around its perimeter. "Mobile 2, hold him inside the circle," came the command of the second unit's leader, who completed their pattern at the entryway to Cull 19's sleep chambers. Skatter, now running at high speed along the inner wall of the Cull near the doors, heard the command and noticed the new formation. "Ah, bloody dogs," he cursed in his head. "It's a new game now. If I touch down in the common, at least some of them in that circle will trap me with the aspirite force. That'll slow me down enough for the other formation to lock me down tight. I don't know if I can break out a 40-plus Rayans hold. Don't want to find out either." He loaded up and sprang in the direction of the sleep chamber's roof. The Mobile 2 commander, being furthest from where Skatter had just launched, tracked the pop of red light that became a streak heading over the top of his forces and towards the building where he was standing. "I've got you now, you monster," the commander muttered while pivoting towards the building. His saber, outstretched, pulsed blue at the roof. As Skatter's feet gained purchase on the sleep chamber's roof, the tile shingles were suddenly pulled towards the ground. He slipped, then crashed hard into the ground of the common. "Rayans, hold him!" the commander yelled, directing his saber towards the fallen Theuton. The combined will of Mobile 1 and the encircling Mobile 2 pinned Skatter in place. Skatter strained against what felt like a 3-story house on his back. His flame intensified, engulfing his whole body in a blazing red light as he struggled to 1 foot and a hand. "Remain at peace, Theuton!" the Mobile 1 commander snapped. "Troopers, maximize your hold!" The combined blue aura of both units flared as Skatter's limbs wobbled under the reinvigorated aspirite power. "It's useless, monster!" Mobile 2's commander boasted. "Today, it's your breath that will cease to curse this world." Skatter's arm faltered, smashing his face like an anvil into the broken floor below. Blood began to leak from a fresh gouge in his cheek, filling his eye and flowing into his mouth. Mobile 2's commander took 1 step towards him. The rest of his unit mimicked their leader's movement in perfect time. Then another step, slowly beginning to close the circle towards their felled target. The other commander called out to his unit, "Mobile 1, close in!" Every trooper, in formation, began to slow march towards Skatter to join Mobile 2. "Troop, halt!" Mobile 2's commander called out, then gestured to the other commander now only a few lengths away from him. "On my command, all troops switch to raise the target to execution height!" Skatter, now starting to choke on the pool of blood growing in front of his face, tried to struggle, but it was futile. He could hear the commander, but couldn't turn his head to see him. "On 3!" came the call. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, a streak of white ripped through the torso of Mobile 2's commander, cutting the other commander in half behind him. 3 more white streaks pulverized 11 shock troopers in formation, spraying their blood at high velocity against the walls and floor of the Cull behind them. The hold on Skatter relinquished, which allowed him to get up and look towards where the lethal attack had come from. Wiping his blood-drenched eyes, he made him out. "Goden!" The elder Theuton stood in the walkway dividing the sleep chambers, his eyes and chest aglow, holding a small armload of lighting orbs. "Ha ha, Goden, you beautiful maniac!" Skatter shouted with elation. "You could not have cut that any closer!" He stumbled over to Goden's side and took a couple of lighting orbs from him. "Let's finish these filth!" Skatter burned bright red, then leaped into the air. Before the rest of the troopers could coordinate, he launched his orbs one after the other into the tightly gathered units. Goden did the same with his remaining 3 orbs from ground level. The ground of Cull 19 erupted in shattered chunks of floor and scattered Rayan body parts in all directions. The explosions also knocked Goden to the ground, shrapnel cutting his body from head to toe. A thick cloud of dust rose to fill the Cull as Skature returned to the chaos below. His glowing red eyes searched the dust on his descent. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He located and counted up small, dull blue glows that pierced the cloud, the sabers of the surviving Rayan troopers. When he landed, Skature collected 5 shards of floor and hurled them all at the blue glows, each one extinguishing with a grotesque crunch and a litany of screams. Looking towards the sleep chambers, he saw a dull red glow through the haze. He rushed over to the fallen Goden. "How are you doing, old-timer?" he asked, cradling the bloodied body of his comrade. Goden coughed from the dust and the blood. "Never better in my life, friend." He forced a smile. "What a day to be alive! Ha ha! I couldn't agree more, Goden," Skature shouted. "Though, if you liked this, you're gonna love the endless Rayan backup that a pull is sure to flood into this dump any minute," he joked. "How's your flame doing?" Goden asked. "Are you able to move the plan forward, like we discussed?" Skature stoked his flame high in response to the question. "Goden, this flame isn't mine. It's Holy Grom's, and like her love, her flame never runs out." "What was that?" Hela yelled from the corner of the Cull where the 3 Thutan youngsters were huddled. A cloud of dust blasted down the back walkway behind the sleep chambers, covering them in dirt and filling the air. They all started coughing, their eyes stinging and watering. Hela tried shielding her eyes with her hand to look down the walkway, squinting through the dust. "Farah, do you see that?" She pointed towards the end of the walkway. Through the thick dust, a faint blue glow was visible, and it was getting closer, fast. A rush of fear washed over Hela. One of the shock troopers was running away from the carnage of the battle and straight towards them. Her mind flashed 1,000 thoughts at once. Then time slowed, and a single memory filled her head. "The next time they come at you, I want you to remember that." It was Skature's voice from last night. "They are as insects to us." Hela looked down at her brother. "I'm the mighty, unwavering hand of Holy Grom," she remembered Skature's words. The blue glow was getting closer, the body of the trooper holding its aspirite blade silhouetted now against the dust. Hela clenched her fists. "Don't cry for them," she said through gritted teeth. Her whole body instantly began radiating bright red. Squeezing her eyes closed, she lunged at full speed towards the blue trooper and swung her closed fist as hard as she could. "Ah!" She screamed at the top of her lungs as she attacked. She didn't feel anything. No impact. No pain from the trooper's blade. No aspirite paralysis. Then she heard it. The clang of the Rayan saber hitting the ground. It jolted her eyes back open. The wind from her subsonic dash cleared the walkway air of dust. Looking behind her to where the sound had come from, she saw the aspirite blade that had been shining blue a moment ago. Beside it was half of the trooper who had wielded it. The rest of him had vanished. Hela's flame subsided. She wiped sweat from her forehead as she looked for the rest of the man, but it wasn't sweat. She looked at her hand and realized that it and the rest of her was covered in the remains of the rest of the trooper. "Hela!" screamed Senna. "Are you hurt?" She snapped back to reality on hearing the sound of his voice. Finn, it's okay, Finn! It's not mine! It's not my blood!" She ran to him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Senna pried free of her hug and pulled away, mouth agape. When she saw her little brother, now covered in the man's blood she'd just killed, Hela came to a standstill. I killed that man. I did it. It was me this time, she realized. The enormity of it suddenly weighed on her soul. "Finn, I had to do it. I had to, Finn," she stammered, voice cracking and tears filling her eyes. Farah interrupted her quasi-apology. "Thank you." She grabbed Hela by the arms. "Thank you, Hela. You just saved our lives." Hela choked back her urge to cry. She wiped her tears, standing reticent while her lips still quivered. "You're welcome, Farah." Just then, Skature came around the corner of the sleep chamber building. He was almost dragging Goden, who wasn't able to carry his weight without leaning on Skature's shoulder. Both Hela and Farah cried out, "Skature!" "Goden! We're fine, my dears, Skatter assured them both. Then he saw Hella's countenance covered in gore. What happened back here? Are you okay? Hella opened her mouth, but Farah spoke for her. A Rayan trooper found us, but Hella used the unvanquished flame and stopped him before he could kill us, she said, emotionless. Skatter smiled proudly at the debrief. That's my girl, Hella. What happened out there? Are you two wounded? Farah asked. I'll have to save that story for another time, young Farah, Skatter said. We won the battle, but it's about to turn into a war. The combined fury of Epole is going to rain down on Cull 19, and that will make this little skirmish look like a minor warm-up. Let me help. I can help, Skatter, Hella urged. Goden straightened up, groaning. You're a special girl, Hella. You will do great things for Grom, of that I have no doubt. He then looked over to Skatter, who was still holding his weight. But today, allow me to take that burden for you. Skatter faced him, then nodded. Earlier in the common. It's the least I owe her, and myself, Goden said with contrition. Grom's love, Skatter responded. Grom's love, Goden repeated. Now, what do you need from me if we have to oppose Epole directly? Goden, you have met my highest expectations, Skatter began. It would be my honor to teach you how to grow your ability to wield the mighty flame of Grom, but we don't have enough time for that kind of preparation. Right now, your inability to deftly wield the flame is what will offer us the greatest chance for escape and survival. I don't think I follow, Skatter. Of course not. It's understandable. Allow me to explain something else about the unvanquished flame. I'm sure you are aware of the unnatural, raw power it bequeaths its wielder. If you had time to test the edges of your ability with it, you would learn that none of us can ever hope to contain it. All the intensity of Grom's love and power? Oh, no. Our ability is directly proportionate to our body's capacity to project the flame without self-destructing. I see, Goden murmured. That capacity is partly something you can enhance with training, but it's also an innate born trait. I've had years of teaching, training, and practice on top of a higher than average ability to use the flame. You might call me a natural. Comparably, little Miss Hella, when she erupted for the first time the other day, well, her flame matched what mine is nearly at the peak of my abilities. That's incredible. Her eruption in the Understreet was intense, but I never guessed it was at the peak of your level. So here's the kicker with that, Skatter continued. No untrained Thooten should be able to emit that much flame and survive. I mean, even most trained Thootens couldn't reach those heights regardless of their skill. She is truly a vexing anomaly. But coming back to you now, if you had an eruption of flame that strong, your body wouldn't be able to contain it. It would overload you, and the resulting explosion would be of a magnitude that's difficult to describe. It would be both terrible and awesome to behold. But Goden, Scatter's expression became grim, you would most certainly die. No ifs or buts about it. There wouldn't be a trace of you left. Do you understand? Goden was quiet for a moment before he replied, Do you want to know if I'm willing to give my life? Because the answer is yes. But to what end? You said earlier that such a strategy was our only hope for escape and survival. His eyes grew solemn. Will my death save your lives? Or is this a death pact to take us all to Grom? Scatter's countenance softened. God and son of Grom, it would be an honor to go out in such a virtuous blaze of glory with you. But I've devised a way you can use this option tactically as a last resort and a lifeline for the rest of us. Goden sighed with visible relief. This gives me great hope, Skatter. Something I haven't allowed myself to feel in a very, very long time. Tell me if it comes down to that and what I have to do. It will be my honor to free my fellow Thootens as my final act before meeting our Holy Mother. The stomp of hundreds of boots on the ground began growing louder. Skatter and Goden nodded at each other. There was an unspoken understanding that their time was short and their options were nearly zero. Nearly zero. Farah, Goden addressed the eldest of his younger three Cullmates. I don't have time to explain, but I have one last thing to ask of you. Last? Listen, please. There is a very narrow window for you all to escape not just this Cull, but this wretched city. But it requires something of us both. Farah's mouth twisted, then she gestured at him to continue. All you need to do is take Hela and Senna to the front left of the Cull, behind the large tree. Duck down behind it and wait for Skature there. My job is to go to the right rear of the Cull. I need to be by the back walls and as far away from you three as possible. What's gonna happen, Goden? Farah was almost hyperventilating. Goden reached out, cupped her cheek with his free hand and gently said, Grom is going to deliver you. With that, he pulled his hand back and nodded to Skature, who lit up red and sprang backward with him toward the rear right of the Cull. Goden! Farah screamed, reaching out to where he had just been, but they were gone. Senna grabbed Farah and his sister by the hand. Let's go! We've got to go! We gotta hide like Goden said! More troopers are coming! I can hear them! Hela snapped into action. Hold on to me, both of you! I can get us there fast, like Skature! She began to stoke her flame. It was getting easier to do at will. The others grabbed on. Hela crouched at the knees, then blasted off down the side walkway of the Cull towards the front left like Goden had told them. As they streaked towards the tree, the clamor of Ray and boots began to fill the air. But it didn't sound like it was coming from the direction of the Cull doors. It was coming from everywhere. The three young people reached the tree and ducked down behind it. Their vision of the common was obscured, but all of a sudden the direction of the sound of boots made sense to Hela. Shock troopers, scores of them, appeared on top of the Cull walls. They were coming from both sides of the Cull and hurrying towards the rear of it to encircle Cull 19 from the high ground. Stay down, Farah hissed at the others. I don't think they saw us. Are they going to see Goden? Senna asked. I hope not. Our job is done. We've honored Goden's request. All we can do now is wait. Meanwhile, at the rear right of Cull 19, Skature placed a weakened and bloodied Goden on the ground next to the wall. This is it, my brother, he said. I'm going to place my hands on your shoulders. Goden nodded. Do it. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This isn't going to feel great. Similar to boiling water being blasted into your body from every pore. And I know this is an unfair thing to ask, but I need you to try and hold as much of it for as long as you possibly can. Can you do that? I can. The omnipresent sound of troopers' boots now resonated off the Cull walls around them. Skature closed his eyes. His chest began to glow brightly. The light expanded to encompass his whole body. Goden's body also started to glow. At first a dull red, then resplendent in its ferocity. A blazing, hellish red flame. Goden gritted his teeth. Oh! He tried to hyperventilate through the pain. Then his glow overtook the brightness of Skature's own flame. Oh! Goden screamed in hellacious agony, drawing the attention of the flood of troopers that were nearly to the rear of the Cull walls. There! One trooper called out at the sound, but a growing, radiant red light at the rear of the Cull soon overshadowed it. All troops converge on that location to restrain! Came another call. In the chaos, and mostly drowned out by the light of Goden's trembling form, Skature streaked down the back walkways of the Cull towards the rendezvous tree. Time seemed to slow as he looked at the top of the walls, teeming with squadrons of elite troopers. He was almost to the tree. Almost. The radiant red aura that was glowing behind him suddenly turned blinding at the sound of a monstrous explosion. Everything went bright, then silent, then dark. Notes from the Acolyte. Rayan standard issue military sabers are made of a hybrid trillium alloy that is hardened along the spine and cutting edge. Within the comparably softer pure trillium of the blade and hilt, asperite gems are encrusted. The number and size of gems within a given saber vary by their issuance. The larger and more plentiful the gems, the higher their prestige and potency. Generally, the most powerful and prestigious of Rayan sabers are reserved for the elite shock troopers and holders of certain sacred stations within the Order of Peace. Though the size of the gem doesn't determine the potency of its user, the user's innate potency will determine the size of gems necessary to project their full strength.